Beginning Katan Daf, Mesechta Moed Katan Daf Chav Gimel. Begins 6 lines down the top of the Yaman, but the Gemara continues the discussion, which the theme of this parak in Megalchem is well known, the halachas of Avelis. We're continuing through the procession of the Avelis, as we were discussing regarding the first 3 days, then we discussed regarding the Shiva, and then so on and so forth. Our Daf continues on that theme. Today's Daf. Some of this discussed in today's Daf are Chacham, Bezdin, Nasi, the laws of mourning for Talmid Chacham, the head of the Bezdin, and the Nasi, Shabbos Rishona, B'Shniyah, regarding the gradual resumption of usual activity during the first 5 weeks of mourning, every week gradually getting closer. Soon the laws of a mourner married, Giyutz, a mourner wearing pressed clothing. Yesh Avelis B'Shabbos, whether one observes the laws of mourning on Shabbos, that's specifically regarding privately, and that is actually manifest in Tashma Shamita, one is permitted to engage in marital relations. Regarding Misha Mesamutlof on the halacha of an oinen, how a mourner eats before burying his relative, whether he observes the mitzvahs at that time. So begin the current Daf Chav Gimel, 6 lines down at the top of the other. Talk about one of the brights of a mourner, Shabbos Rishon, the first week, in the Yitzmi Pesach Pesach, that first Shabbos, he doesn't leave the entryway of his house. Shniya, the second week, Yoitze, he leaves. But when he comes to shul, he doesn't sit in his regular place. Shlish is the third week. Yeshivim he sits in his regular place. But Ve'eni Medaber doesn't speak. Which place has a discussion that specifically not to speak in his place, or doesn't not speak at all. Revi is the fourth week. Is like everybody else. That's how the Tanakh holds. Yehuda, he holds 1 week more stringent because he says we have a tradition that the first week he wouldn't leave. Now, you wouldn't have to say the actual first week of the Shiva, that that doesn't leave the doorway of his house, because most definitely he's not leaving his house. Everyone's coming to his house to console him. So you can't say that was the first actual week. And the Shniya in Yitzmi Pesach Pesach. No, the first week, of course, he's sitting Shiva. The second week, he still doesn't leave the entryway of his house. Then Shlish is the third week, so he pushes everything off a week. The third week, he goes out, but he doesn't sit in his regular place. The fourth week, he sits in the place, but he doesn't speak. And Chamisha is the fifth week, that is like everybody else. In the Brisa, regarding the transition of mourning and regarding the certain halachic limitations. So the old 30 days regarding to marriage, meaning up until 30 days have passed, after his mourning, he's not going to get married yet to a woman. Now, Mesa Ishta, if his wife passed away, and that's why he was in Avelis, and also Lisa Isha he's not going to get married to another woman, until the 3 Yom Tovim have passed. What's the reason for that? So Tais says a few interpretations. He says that we don't want to forget the love of his wife. We want you to be without simcha for Shalosh Regalim, for 3 Yom Tovim, to feel the loss of not having your spouse. Or another approach is, so that if you're going to get married to another woman, we don't want you to remember the first wife. It wasn't so long ago. We don't want what's called Beis Days B'mita. We don't want you remembering the intimacy of the first wife when you were with the second wife. So we need at least 3 Yom Tovim to pass. Or, third pshat Taisa brings is that you still remember the first wife, and you're going to provoke the new wife, saying, "The erst is giving best from the." You know, you know what I'm saying? We don't want that happening. So one time to pass to Yom Tovim, and therefore you can't get married with a new wife if it was a loss of a wife. He says, he says no. The first Yom Tov and the second Yom Tov. He says the third Yom Tov, be already allowed to get married. Now, if he is, let's say there was a new couple, whatever, chas shalom, tragedy, or doesn't have these children, Mutzalisa altar, he's allowed to get married right away. That's simply the first mitzvah in the Torah of not having children, so therefore then you're allowed to get married. Now, if let's say he actually did, but he actually left over a family of young kids, then also Mutalisa to get allowed to get married right away, because of to provide for them. He says this guy's got to go to work, got to go to college, whatever it is. Somebody got to take care of the kids, so therefore then he's like get married right away. And there's actually a story that the wife of Yisro Cohen passed away. He said to her sister in the cemetery by the Levaya, he says, "Go and provide for the sons of your sister," meaning let's get married. And Vav Pikin, however, in spite of that, it wasn't intimate with her until at least a long time later. Which must have, what's a long time later? But they got married right then in the Ma'at Levaya. He said, go ahead, let's go take care of your sister's kids. But he just wasn't intimate till after 30 days, which places has, one version says it's lav dafka in the cemetery because the oval for the whole shiva is forbidden to get married. But the Riva brings that actually there's a story brought in Zvachim that Kufim Anav that a woman died Erev Pesach, and we had said previously that if Yemecha Filah Sha'achas the Batman Exer Shiva, so it could have been mamish in the cemetery Erev Pesach was the Lamai. He says, let's go Machta Chasna mamish from the base over the base of Mishta, literally, but he just wasn't intimate until 30 days later. Talk about Linda Brisa. Kol Shleishim Yom Begayot. All 30 days from the passing. It's forbidden for the mourner to wear freshly pressed clothing, and that's echad kelim chadashim, whether it's new clothing, echad kelim yishanim, whether it's old clothing, but yitzim and techamachish, but coming out of the press, which makes it like new. When you go to the cleaners and you have these freshly pressed clothing, that's forbidden for the shleishim. Rabbi Yomi, then you have some tanaim that severely limit this isser. He says la asr elukim chadashim lovad. No, he says no. The isser of freshly pressed clothing is only new clothing. And Rabbi Shimon, he says la asr elukim chadashim lovad lovad. Says they only made it forbidden only new white garments. And actually the Gemara brings that Amiram went with those leniencies. Abayi nafik begardo desarbelo. He went that with what's called a teasel coat, meaning to say it's an old jacket, but it was freshly pressed. So since it was old, even though it was white, so he went out Kerebi. The Rebbe said no, the only thing that was forbidden was white that's new. So, since it wasn't new, even though it was white, it's permitted. And Rava Nafik Bechimutsasa, which is a type of a cloak, a type of a jacket of Remisa that comes from Rome, there was some makta that was red, even though Chate was new. Because that was Kerblaz and Shimon. That he said that no, that even what they said is forbidden only if it's white. And this was red. And therefore, it didn't have the issur of wearing the fresh clothing, because only white clothing that has that certain geshmak, and the red is not a forbidden. The halacha of the Mishnah, going back to the Mishnah, said that when it was discussing regarding as the Avelis applies to different Yom Tovim and Shabboses, so Nishama they said that Shabbos Oila. Shabbos counts for the counting of the Shiva, in contrast to Yom Tov. Yom Tov is mafsik and it doesn't count. So let's say the Avelis happened during Yom Tov. Shabbos is in a way inverse of Yom Tov. Shabbos counts towards the Shiva. So let's say the passing was on a Tuesday, Shabbos is going to be one of the days of the 7th, and ve'in mafsekes, it doesn't interrupt. So you don't stop the Avelis on Shabbos. It counts and you don't stop it. Now we have a machlekes b'nei Yehud b'nei Galila. The people from Judea and the people of the Galilee, they had the following machlekes. Haniami, there are those that said, it's not like who said, wow, but as you get into the days, they said, yes, Avelis b'Shabbos. There is laws of mourning on Shabbos, which Taisa points out, that's specifically Dram Shabbatzina, meaning things that are discreet, that are private. Public displays of Avelis, we don't have on Shabbos, but there is private laws of Avelis. The other one said, no, ain't Avelis on Shabbos, no, there's no Avelis on Shabbos whatsoever. So the Gemara explains where that source was from the halach of our Mishnah that we just quoted in the Divrei Masa. Manda Yesh Avelis b'Shabbos, the one that says that there is mourning on Shabbos, because what did the Mishnah say? The Mishnah said that by Shabbos it's Oila, counts towards the Shiva. How's it count towards the Shiva? Obviously, because there's at least Dvam Shabbatzini at night. The one says no, there's no mourning on Shabbos because in Mafsekes. It says that Shabbos doesn't interrupt the Shiva. Now the Gemara says the Cheshbon. If you think to say that yes, Shabbos b'Shabbos, that like the other opinion that wants to say that there's mourning on Shabbos, Hashtavel naga. If there's mourning that applies, if sukumi boy, do I need to tell you that it's not going to stop it? Of course, not stopping it. You're noig avelis. Obviously, there's no avelis, and that's the chiddush I was saying that even though there's no avelis, it's not going to be mafsik. That's a chiddush. If not, there's no chiddush. Obviously, there must be that there is no avelis on Shabbos. Now, so the Gemara says, okay, but what does he do with the fact that it says it counts? If there's no avelis, how's it counting towards the Shiva period? Says the Gemara, you're right. I did the Kabbalah Misni Seifa since we wanted to say the other half of this halacha, meaning in our Mishnah regarding Yom Tovim, the Yom Tovim we said is in the inverse. Yom Tovim is mafsik, and it does not count. Now, for example, Shavuos is also like Shabbos, that it's one day, and we had to tell you by the Seifa that it's mafsik, and that it's Ein Oila, that we have to tell you Einim Oilim, so therefore we said by Shabbos also that it does count. But not because there is Avelis by Shabbos, it's just because we had to say we wanted to talk about mafsikin and a mafsikin, which that was necessary because since there's no avelis on Shabbos, it's a chiddush to say that it's not going to be mafsik. So therefore, we said also oilen and oilen, even though it was not necessary, it's because the Sefer needed that to say that of einim oilen. That's the chiddush of Shavuos. That even though it's one day, it's not going to count. So therefore, in the Reisha by Shabbos, we said that you're right. There's no chiddush in the halacha of oila, and that's not really what we mean to say in the context of when we're discussing Shabbos. The Gemara says, according to one that says that there is mourning on Shabbos, Haktare in Mavsekes. But what do you mean? Why does it say in Mavsekes? We said there's no chiddush in that. Of course, if there's Avelis, it's not going to be Mavsek. That was the proof of the Mandam who said that there's no Avelis in Shabbos. Says the Gemara, a similar answer. Since when in the second half of the Lacha of the Mishnah, it talks about Yom Tov, and we had to say that Yom Tov is Mavsek, it stops. So in the Reisha, in those six, we said in the Reisha it's not Mavsek, but of course it's not going to be Mavsek because it's not even the laws of Avelis. Because there is the laws of Avelis, so of course it's not going to be mafsik. But we're right, we didn't really have to say that. Okay, that's the machlekes. So let me cut to know. Let's say that this machlekes b'nei Yehuda b'nei Gilila is a machlekes in the following brisa. Misha meis mutu levanav. Someone has his relative who passed away laying there in the house. So if he has to eat, he goes into another room, into another house. In the Bais Achav, he doesn't have another house to go into. He eats in his friend's house. In the Bais Chaver, he doesn't have a friend's house to eat. And so he makes a partition, puts a mechitzas 10 tefachim high. It doesn't have anything to make a partition. So he turns his face around and he eats. No, but in the Mesiv, but he doesn't recline and eat. When Bas doesn't eat meat. When doesn't drink wine. When Mevarch doesn't make brachas. When Bezaman he doesn't make the zimun and birchas hamazon. When Mevarch the love, and neither do others make the bracha for him, meaning by the birchas hamaitzi. When Bezaman the love, and they don't make zimun on him, meaning to be maitzi him and be making part of the birchas hamazon of the zimun. Upat mekriya shema is exempt from kriya shema, from that tefillah, from davening, from that tefillah, from reading tefillah, from mitzvahs with this halacha b'oinen, from all mitzvahs with the Torah, he's part of it. Now, upa Shabbos, but if it's Shabbos, he reclines and he eats. He eats meat. He drinks wine. He makes brachas. He's part of the zimun. And he makes the brachas. And he makes zimun on him. And he's chayv in kriya shema, b'tefillah and davening, b'tefillah and tefillah. All the mitzvahs in the Torah. Okay. Liloy, he says one step more. He says, if it's Shabbos, you tell me he's chayv and all these different things in kriya shema, etc., because he's like a regular yid on Shabbos. So in the chayv b'kulan, then he's obligated in everything. What do you mean everything? Isn't that what the Tanna Kama is saying? Everything. What is Rabbi Malil adding on? He says tashmesh amitek. The difference between them is marital intimacy. The one that says Rabbi Malil that says he's in chayv b'kulan, he holds everything, meaning even that which is discreet. That is, he's even permitted to have marital intimacy. Tanna Kama, however, held that no. That which is discreet, what's betzina, he's actually forbidden in marital intimacy. Says the Gemara, isn't this what they're disagreeing about? The Mar, the one that said that the Tanna Kama says you're not allowed marital intimacy, somebody holds Yeshav Shabbos. There is mourning on Shabbos, at least regarding Dvarim Shebetzina, things that are discreet that people don't know about. But a Mar, that says permitted, Savar, he held like Shmuel, that says in Avilas Shabbos, that there's no mourning on Shabbos, no mourning at all, even Dvarim Shebetzina, they're allowed marital intimacy. Says the Gemara, no, not necessarily is this machlekes tanoim, the machlekes that we had from the Bnei Yehuda Bnei Gilila. Because Dilma Adkan Lekama Tanna Kama Hasa, maybe we find the Tanna Kama over saying over there that there is Avelis, meaning that it's forbidden to have marital intimacy. From the Mesa Mutalafana, because he's an Einin, he has his dead laying in front of him. But here, where the person's already buried, there's no mess in front of him, then lie. Maybe Tanna Kama wouldn't hold that there would be any prohibition of Dvarim Shebetzin on Shabbos. Maybe you would be allowed to have man on sin. It wouldn't be as disgraceful. And V'ad can come Rabbi Lil Hasam, and maybe over there to be from Lil that says you're allowed to have Tashma Shemitah, because ultimately, the person wasn't buried yet, and therefore the laws of money didn't take effect yet. And that's what Teish discusses, what the halacha by Oinen is that because of he's busy trying to bury the dead person, and Shabbos you don't have that. In other words, so Avelis didn't take effect yet. But maybe here where Avelis took effect already, we're talking about when the person is Avel. and it just happens to be on Shabbos. Maybe there would be laws of mourning on Shabbos, and there would be forbidden time. There is not a raya to compare the laws of Einin to the laws of Avelas. It might be either more stringent or might be either more lenient. Now, on top of Chavdal Manal, the Gemara just concludes that Baimin Yechim Mishmul. He says, Yesh Avelas b'Shabbos or Ein Avelas b'Shabbos. He says, is the law of mourning of Shabbos or not? Amalei Satim Ein Avelas b'Shabbos. He says, there's no laws of mourning on Shabbos, which we said that means that even Dvarim Shabbatzina, but that's what Tosfos brings. Rabbi Yochanan did not accept what Shmuel said, because he holds, as Tosfos proved on the previous Tosfos, that Dvarim Shabbatzina is naig, that you would have, and therefore, you would say that Yesh Avelas b'Shabbos, that would be forbidden to have Maryland and on Shabbos. You just can't have public displays of those. Thank you anytime for hosting us.